Welcome to the Victory Multisport podcast. This is Coach Sarge, and I'm with Coach Kenny.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, Coach Kenny. And our very special guest today, Coach Ken Prizzuti from PittsburghRunner.com. How are you doing, Coach?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on the podcast today. We recently announced that you are joining the Team Victory as a strategic partnership with your group of athletes and your coaching expertise coming into the fold with Victory. So we wanted to bring you on the podcast, explore that a little bit, go back in time, find out all about Coach Ken P, and figure out what makes you tick, bring it all the way forward through a couple of different iterations of yourself. I think we learned some things on the pre-work about some career path things that you've been involved in that we had no idea. So that'll be fun to talk about briefly in this, I guess, in this election year. Might be applicable in some ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
It's kind of funny because just over the years at Mighty Moraine, being up there watching, like we've probably seen Ken race 20 times.
Sure.
And I was always like, huh. And I started to know him, your energy, you were always smiling, fun. You had the pink tri-suit, full send. And, like he left like a good impression every time you would see him race. So it was really, really cool that we're able to have this very strategic partnership with him, with his knowledge, with his athletes inside of the Victory family now. So it's really, really cool. But kudos to you, man. You're one that shines very brightly when you race in many different ways, your performance, your energy level. So it's really cool to kind of, I started putting two and two together. I'm not the smartest guy, but I'm like, wait a minute, I cheer for him. I think his name's Ken. That's my name. He goes by Kenny. And then I'm like, that's him. And then I realized that Ironman training, there's another guy that has Ironman cert. His name's Ken Prizzuti. I'm like, I wonder if that's the guy. And sure enough, there we are.
Awesome. Good deal. Yeah. I can remember several years ago seeing you guys at Mighty Moraine for the first time. Like this is pretty cool. Like who is this group? They seem a lot bigger. What's going on here? And then probably the following year, so 22
to 23.
23, somewhere in there. I was running Pittsburgh Marathon, and I came by the Victory tent, and I hear, "Come on, Ken P, let's go!"
Yeah,
and it was you, and I was like, I didn't even know they knew who I was. And like at that moment, I was like, okay, like the energy here is awesome. These guys are everywhere, locally and beyond. Someday I'm going to be part of this.
Okay,
I didn't know how it was going to transpire, but I was really stoked when we started talking more this kind of past year and toward the end of last year, and super stoked to be part of the group. So.
Yeah. Well, you've always been a gentleman. You've always been, just in the way you coach and the way you present yourself at races and the way you deal with the others in the sport, right? And that's what this sport is really all about. Especially the world of triathlon. And endurance sports is a community, and it's a community of people, of like-minded people that, for the most part are there for each other. Right. And they're there for themselves in certain times, and maybe on race day, they go for their PR against everybody else. And that's quite okay. But, I've never seen anybody hesitate to help somebody else in some way, shape or form, whether it's a piece of advice, need an extra tube, you need this to help you get finished in the race. And you've always been there for everybody that way as well.
And I think that's even that's the biggest part of the sport for me. Even when I raced Placid this past year, I sat down, and I do this with my athletes as well. We kind of talk about what our goals are, what we're trying to accomplish, what the motivations behind those goals are. And a lot of times athletes will sit down and they'll talk about, I want to finish in this time, I want to finish in that time. And I remember just looking at my own list and taking myself through the goal setting process. And for me, it was a lot more about, my motivation is to hang out with my athletes, to celebrate coming over the line with the athletes, to hang out with you guys, with the Victory family. You guys had your whole group up there, and we were still talking at that time. But for me, it was all about the community. And even as I was thinking about the goals behind the sport and my motivations, it's much more about connecting with others in the sport like you're talking about.
Absolutely. And when we enjoyed having you come alongside, I know some of your athletes that were able to come to our pre-race event that we had at our Airbnb house at Lake Placid were kind of blown away. They're like, we got to be able to connect in this way. We got to get into with you. I said, well, we got that in the works. We're letting Ken get his races out of the way. Then we're going to have this talk. So it all came together, and we're glad to have all your athletes, yourself involved in what we do and part of our community. So congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Were you guys wrestling fans growing up?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so do you remember NWO, the Wolfpack Red?
Yes.
Okay, do you know it?
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
so I just got that shirt, and so I wear it.
Of course you did.
I have it. Right? And I posted a picture of me lifting weights with it.
Got the belt too.
And everybody's like, Wolfpack, too sweet. You know, like it's crazy, but it is funny because those that don't know Victory or stumble upon us, that's that first impression is they're like the NWO. They just show up one night and take over the whole thing, right? And it's not that we're trying to be disruptive. We're trying to bring an energy that's like nothing else. And it's folding into Val's Aid Station.
Right.
It's folding into our spectators. It's folding into our families. And it's very attractive. And you know, so hearing you say it, hearing others say it, like, man, I just kept running and they're cheering for me. Like I helped a girl finish at Mighty Moraine this year. Like she was getting off the bike crying. Like I can't do it. And I'm like, I'm a coach. And her boyfriend was like, yeah, whatever he says, listen to him right now. And he moved away. I said, we're going to walk your bike up. But at the end of it, she goes, I don't even know where you guys came from, who you guys were, but you saved my race and you saved my whole weekend and everything. And that's kind of interesting hearing you just say that. Like it's loud and it's proud.
Oh, and we have so much fun. I know we talked before the podcast about how much fun we're going to have doing this cast. And you know, that's how we are. We are out there. We're going to be present. We're going to cheer for everybody, whether we know your name or not. We'll call you by the color of your kit or a nickname, an appropriate nickname, as you race by us in one way or shape or form. And we've been doing that for years. We did that pre-Victory, you know, with Kenny and I starting about 12 or 13 years ago into this sport. We would do that for each other at races, for friends of ours that were racing alongside us. And it's been great. So,
and even seeing, I know we've started here in Western Pennsylvania, but have athletes across the country and even globally,
Absolutely.
right?
Sure.
Following you guys first on Instagram and other spots, I can see like that level of intensity. If there's one Victory athlete in any race, regardless of where it is, that person is bringing that level of intensity.
give them the line, Kenny.
It's bringing it. We're coming at it.
Now, if there's one, there's many.
Yeah.
Right? If there's one of us, there's many of us. And they're, you know, whether they're physically present or they're emotionally present or they're remotely present. We've had guys going into the final couple miles of their Ironman races in, you know, California, Arizona, and dudes back here in the East they may have had a little too much to drink, but they're running in their dress shoes on the treadmill in their basement on FaceTime at the same time that person's finishing, trying to run them into the finish line, you know, in that karma kind of way, right? Putting that energy out to the universe.
Just by the way, that was Tanza. That was at like 11 o'clock at night. And one of our guys was finishing an Ironman, and he's like, get on the treadmill right now. I'm like, okay. I get up, get on the treadmill. He's wearing Hey Dude shoes, like his church shoes. He was loaded. And he got like 50 people to go on the treadmill with it.
Man. Yeah. That was fantastic.
It is
It's good stuff,
insane.
though.
It's totally insane.
It's awesome.
And I can't wait for my athletes that are on the other side of the country or down south or right now. I have a guy who's in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
Can't wait for them to like feel that intensity and being part of the Victory family wherever they are.
Sounds like a newsletter article, Ken, to me. I think we should put that in the athlete briefing. Just maybe we can do an international piece on all the people that are not, you know, necessarily right here with us in Western PA.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Awesome. So more about you, because you're here as a guest and we want to find out about Ken P. So how'd you evolve into this? And we usually take people back to their high school days or whatever.
Yeah,
you're an athlete in high school and college or what.
Try not to take too long.
It was a one-room schoolhouse in a lonely field somewhere. No.
Yeah, so I grew up in Springdale, which is just kind of
Dynamos.
Springdale Dynamos, baby.
When did you graduate from there?
2000.
Holy smoke.
Didn't you coach down there?
I did.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah. In fact, Billy Dugan's a Springdale Dynamo.
Okay.
Colin Dugan was his brother.
Yeah, I know their name. I know the name Dugan. I don't know if I know those guys.
I used to coach baseball in Springdale.
Okay.
And I grew up right up the hill from the Purple Elephant. Chessie's pools and patios.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. My uncle's the chief of police in Lower Borough. So I didn't know you were a Dynamo. You didn't even know I knew Dynamo.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm not from here.
No, I know. What is his name? Sparky or something?
Rudy Kilowatt.
Kilowatt
Was the Dynamo logo.
Oh yeah, for sure it was.
So,
nice.
I played soccer and ran track and was not particularly talented at either, but I still really enjoyed it. Yeah. And one of the conditioning things that we would do for soccer was the coach would have us take cycle classes, spin classes. And I mean, late 90s, like spinning was kind of a new thing back then. Johnny G created the first spinner bike. And so I was doing that and I was really enjoying that. But then, just keeping in shape, ended up graduating, going off to college, not doing any collegiate sports. And in fact, I almost signed up for rowing at Robert Morris and went to the activities fair, was talking to them like, okay, fantastic. We'd love to have you on the team. So
you got to show up at 4:30 in the morning. You got to come down to the river.
I was like, 4:30. and then I walked over to the next activities booth and joined a fraternity instead.
Show up at 4:30 p.m. after you slept in all day, not in the morning.
Yeah,
exactly.
Kenny knows that life pretty well, right?
Oh yeah. Sig up.
But so I did not join the rowing team and I joined the fraternity, but still very much enjoyed the cycle classes that I was taking and running on a regular basis. And I needed a job as well. So I thought, well, why don't I just become a cycling instructor, like an indoor cycling instructor? So I started doing that. And that was probably my first avenue into coaching specifically. And just, through doing that, continuing to run, building up fitness, was thinking, man, I could probably do a triathlon someday. I don't know how to swim, but I don't think I'm going to drown. And so that kind of set the spark in my mind for triathlon. And I guess from there, at one point I was after I got married, was teaching cycling classes, and just a random person came into the class one day and we just started talking after I helped him get his bike set up, and we kind of hit it off and became pretty good friends. And he had done triathlon in the past, and so introduced me to swimming. He's like, let's get in the pool. Let's see what we can do. I remember doing 4 lengths and being so I show up to the pool deck. I've got these big baggy Abercrombie and Finch board shorts on,
cargo pockets.
Yeah, they're cargo pockets,
catching all the drag.
So I did 4 lengths.
Those were Aero back in the day.
They were, right? I mean, this was probably 2008, 2009, and I was just completely out of breath. I thought, wow, man, that must have been like a quarter of a mile,
40 pounds.
They probably were. Yeah. They had the big floral print on them and everything. So
not a quarter mile, not even 100.
No. It was
interesting because I saw one of your swim workouts today as we were looking at your platform, and it said the cargo swim workout.
Oh yeah, right.
Throw them on.
I do from time to time. We'll throw those onto an athlete just for that reason.
See what's up.
That was my first, after I learned to swim a little bit more, I went and got appropriate jammers, and my first race, I think, was 2008 or 2009, and it was in Ohio. They had a race that was it was a sprint outside of Delaware, and it was that was the first time. And I remember training for that, being so exhausted after all those workings. I was thinking, how could anybody ever do an Ironman? How could you even potentially get yourself to swim that long? It was just out of my realm of comprehension. But that year, I think I did one more. There was a small triathlon here in Pittsburgh, and then did Pittsburgh Tri a couple years. And that same friend, he ended up signing up for in 2011 Arizona, and I was like, well, I'm going to do an Ironman before you do. So I signed up for Louisville.
There you go.
Had to one up him.
Yeah, I had to one up. And so that was the first Ironman that I did back in 2011. And from there, I was just like completely hooked. I loved it. I loved everything about the sport personally, like how I felt how I felt training, being able to set goals. And then I think I also realized at some point during that, I had, other folks ask, hey, could you help us learn?
Absolutely.
To
That's how it happens, right?
Yeah.
And if you have a passion for it and you're like, hey, I could probably learn a little more, get a certificate, and then I can help people.
Yeah.
So how many fulls have you done, Ken?
Placid 3 times, Louisville twice.
Okay.
So what, 5? Yeah. Okay.
That's great.
They
5 fulls, probably an uncounted number of halves and sprints and Olympics and training and preparing and all of that. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I scaled back when my son was born in 2012.
100%.
And then 2016 really got back into it and really dove. That's when I went in Ironman certification.
Okay.
And because prior to that, I was just sort of helping people somewhat officially, somewhat unofficially. I had running certifications. At one point I ended up getting certified in what we call chi running. Just because I was looking, I said, I don't want to just tell my runners, go this far, this fast, if this is the race you're training for. I want to make sure that you stay healthy. I started reading a lot about running form, because even when I ran track in high school, and a lot of the track kids that I help today, or cross country kids that I still coach today, their main coaches, like, for whatever reason, just do not focus on form. And it's hard, right? Like, I'm not talking bad about the coaches. You got a program, you got 40, 50 kids, you got to run. Like, you just can't do it all. So I didn't have any background in running form. Nobody had ever taught me how to run. They just said, go run. And I thought, for my athletes, like, I really want to dial this in and tweak it in so that we continue to progress and we don't have to take that time off. I think 85% of runners end up with an overuse injury every year. So
absolutely.
So that's where really probably I would say, like, the hardcore coaching started, was with that. And then I pulled in the Ironman cert in 2016. And then from there, I've just continued to.
Yeah, you're stacking them, right? You're stacking all these certs, right? Spin instructor, chi running, and you got a couple more in there somewhere.
I try not. It's not about the certifications, right? It's about the learning and the continuous learning, and I think that's the most important thing. Sometimes you see all these papers and alphabet soup next to somebody's name.
I see you as someone that is genuinely curious to learn more. Just from talking to you and going through this process the last couple of years of coming alongside you. So sometimes I think that's what I get from it. That's why you're here on this podcast, is to talk about that, because curiosity is what's driving you to learn more, to then be able to help other people. And I think that's the whole point.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I have to be careful. An athlete will bring a unique challenge and then I can go down a rabbit hole. I'm like, just got to get them an answer and get them a good enough for right now. But it spurs a whole nother avenue that I like to run down.
He's like Nelly, because Nelly will coach anything.
Right.
I mean, he had somebody in there for like climbing.
Yeah. Alpine climber, Ellie. Yeah. Ellie was one of our athletes, and his sport was to go alpine climb in South America, right? To do the Andes and things of that nature. And so he needed, a cardio base, but on a program that kept him and set him up for success for an A race, if you will, but an A climb, right? In South America, where he's going to, 32,000 feet or whatever the hell it is, right?
Yeah.
Or high
he had him sleeping in those tents.
Doing hypoxic training and, deprivation training and things of that nature. In addition to, what was that? The garbage hill, or the...
Oh yeah. He had him on the, like the garbage drive or the trash dump drive.
Yeah. So basically this guy's hill next to where he lived was the dump. So he'd put on a ruck and have him ruck this hill in the trash dump. Right. So, but he did it. He loved it.
That's awesome.
He was highly successful. Like he came back from these climbs, so he made it, and he did not, falter up there at the altitude.
I always tease Nelly. I'm like, hey, somebody asked about bocce tournaments. Like, they want to get better at it. Can you coach? He's like, let me look and see if
let me read up on it.
Let me see if there's certifications on it. I'll see what I can do.
But he's another one that loves to learn, and his is in the data side. Like, you give him you give anything data driven for him, and he's going nuts on it.
Because
he's an engineer, right?
Yep.
By trade. So
yeah, I think so if you were to ask me, or whenever anybody asks, what do you do, right? I always say I'm a coach, and whether it's kind of by trade, like day job, or it's on the athletics world, I try to bring that coaching mindset. So obviously with athletes, it's working on helping them train for their races, set their goals, learn to love the process. Reminded me when you were talking about the trek down in the Andes. We've got a guy that we're working on. Our ultimate goal is the Barclay Marathons in Tennessee. Yep. And same thing, like, okay, man, go scout out a couple giant hills in the woods behind your house.
Brutal course you can train on.
Yeah.
For sure, right?
Yep. So we bring the right mindset to that type of training. It's helping them get ready for that race. But then also by trade during the day, I work with different executives, and I work with software teams and building better products or bringing new digital products to market. And the same thing, like, I'm not necessarily in there anymore. And very little back in the day writing code and whatnot. It'd be scary if I had to do that to any extent anymore. But working with folks on their mindset and thinking about, okay, this is where we ultimately want to be. This is what we want to bring to market, or these are the changes or the impacts we want to have, whether it's on our markets or whether it's on the world in some way. How do we go about doing that? What's going to motivate us to do that? How do we do it most effectively and efficiently? And that's all coaching, right? Yeah. So I try to approach almost everything I'm doing with a coach's mindset, and help others learn and appreciate that lifelong learning mentality and journey.
I think that's a pretty great observation to bring out on the cast here, Ken. Is not everybody in the world can define themselves that well, and that's not a slight. It's just they haven't taken the time to think about, who am I, what am I about, and how do I apply that to everything that I do. And I think that's a great example of how you've come to this place where you were a pedestrian athlete in high school, but you've developed yourself and you've had that curiosity to learn, and now you have a way to define yourself, whether it's in your professional career, W-2 life, it's in your passion of coaching in the endurance world, or racing in the endurance world, or being part of the endurance world, and all the things in between, probably as well with your kids and your family. You're using, and not that you're trying to train your family, but you have to lead your family as well, right? So if you're going to bring your kids up, you're coaching them in soccer, I believe, right?
Yeah, we're doing soccer right now. So we've got a game 6:00 tonight. Yeah, that's been going awesome. But so I think like you said, right? Trained yourself to be able to learn these things about you and do these things. And I think it's just like running, right? Like nobody actually says, this is how you run. It's very rare that you find somebody that says, hey, have you thought about this? How do you define yourself as a person? What is your personal mission? How do you do that? So it's one of the things that I too try to bring to the coaching that I do with my athletes too. Yeah. Right? Like certainly I have some people that are like, hey, here's my check. Just tell me what workouts to run. And actually, I don't like to work with those types of athletes as much. I want to go deeper with somebody. Like, what's going to get you through that Barclay Marathon when it's, day 2 and it's freezing cold and you don't want to go up that hill one more time, right? And I think if you don't really truly know yourself, or you've taken the time to do a little bit of that work to find out who you are, what your values are, what drives you, it's a lot harder to get through those dark places.
That's right. Absolutely, 100%. And I agree. So that's great that you're able to, peel back that onion and get down into that, depths of the things with the athletes to really help them be able to survive the moments that they'll need to survive to, accomplish the goal that they're after. I think you also said a very interesting thing. And I just thought back to all the athletes that we've had in Victory and all the friends even that we've helped across the years, and even ourselves. No one's ever come and said, hey, I need a running coach to do a triathlon. They're like, I need to learn how to swim. I need a bike. I need this. Because everybody believes, and I think when we take the trainings, even they mentioned it in USAT at least, they talked about running is almost inherent because you learn, you do it when you're young and you do it your whole life to some degree. So people believe they know how to run and they really don't.
That's right.
So
that's right.
I think that, you can talk a little more about the chi methodology and the Chi, philosophy on the cast here, to just let people know more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started getting interested in proper running form or helping my athletes run in a way that wasn't going to get them injured, I can remember reading different excerpts from different coaches. Somebody was talking about vertical oscillation. Somebody was talking about ground contact time. Somebody was talking about running from your core. And I just kind of randomly stumbled across Chi Running, which was a book and a method developed by a guy named Danny Dreyer. And I picked the book up and I read it in like a day and a half. And back then I was not a big reader. But it just made so much sense to me as I was going through it. And the way I describe it to folks now is that, number one, if I took somebody who studied Chi Running, and then maybe I took somebody who took a workshop in pose running, which is another very popular form of running, right? And I think New Balance promotes what they call good form running. And then we lined you up against the Tarahumara Indians from Mexico, or some natural runners that you might see come out of Ethiopia or Kenya. We put everybody on a track. They're all going to look pretty much the same. They all going to have a very natural movement. They're going to move what I would say probably the way that the body is designed to move. Now, a lot of those folks obviously never even studied Chi Running before. So Chi Running, for me, it was just the way that Danny took the concepts and put them together to take an athlete to where their body, to move the way the body is actually designed to move. So like, that's the number one thing that I say is like, there's nothing inherently special or secret about the way we run in Chi Running. It's just pulling these concepts and teaching them in a way that makes sense, that I've seen have the most success getting athletes to set themselves up in a way that is natural.
And developing their self-aware skills of understanding what it should look like and what they may or may not be doing that makes it not look that way.
Yeah.
Which is working against them, right?
Right.
They're breaking actions, or they're not in the right
position. And when we talk about that, the Chi in Chi Running comes from Tai Chi, right? And I say this all the time. I've never actually taken a Tai Chi class, but they say, and through the lens of Chi Running, like I've studied a little bit of this, Tai Chi it's one of the most ancient martial arts. It was set up in a way that allows you to move your body, again, in the way the body was designed to move. So you're not taking your joints and you're not tweaking them in ways that are unnatural. You're focused on having very good posture. This is where Chi Running and Tai Chi gets a little bit more hippy dippy, right? Because we'll talk about, okay, if you're in good posture and you're not tight or you're not tense, then you let this life force Chi flow through your body, right?
Okay.
Again, that gets a little bit more to the hippy dippy side. I kind of like a little bit of that every now and then. Most of the time when I'm working with my runners, though, we stick to the biomechanics of it. But there are three ideas outside of that, proper alignment, lets Chi flow through your body. There are three ideas that we borrow from Chi Running, or from Tai Chi rather, incorporate them into Chi Running that, again, like very much speak to the biomechanics of movement. So the first principle is alignment and relaxation, right? We're trying to get you aligned both directionally and posturally. So if we're moving forward down the track, we want to try to get all of our body parts that should be moving forward. So our feet don't splay out or pigeon toe in, but we're keeping them nice and parallel down the track. Sometimes you'll see a runner swinging their arms way across their body. It's throwing their shoulders out of whack. We're trying to avoid that. That's violating that principle of directional alignment. And then from a postural standpoint, trying to create that straight line from the crown of your head all the way down to your tailbone. So you're not hinging at the waist or hinging at the hip, which from a mechanics standpoint will actually cut off your body's ability to use your psoas muscle to help lift the legs, right? So you can't run from the core anymore if you bend. And so many times you see runners hunched over, especially at the back of the marathon,
100%.
Right? In that death march. So that first principle, alignment and relaxation, I think very much helps. And that's a lot of times where I start with athletes. The second principle is cooperating with forces. So you think about if we're fighting, right, and I throw a punch, you're not going to connect your fist with my fist. Like that is going to hurt. And so instead, you probably move your forearm in such a way that you might deflect my fist away. So you're kind of cooperating and neutralizing that force before you make your counterattack. So when you think about running, we have two forces that are acting on the body. We've got first the force of gravity, So if I want to overcome force, I have to generate or create more force with my legs, right? So I have to use force to overcome that force. And again, that's violating that rule of cooperating with forces. So if we have your posture right from that first step, and we let you lean forward or fall from your center, now you're falling more into gravity. You're cooperating more with that force of gravity. So that's one aspect. Mm-hmm. The second aspect of cooperating with forces, or the second force that we have acting on us when we're running, is the force of the road coming after us or at us, right? So you think about it, most runners probably overstride. And so that means they're kicking their foot way out in front of them, dorsiflexing the whole way through, and then landing on the back of their heel. And every time they land on the back of the heel, I heard you say, you're throwing braking on your brakes. Mm-hmm. You're throwing on that braking action. So if we can get you to a point where you're able to take your foot and you're able to land underneath the body's center of gravity, or a lot closer to the center of gravity, and then you can open up that stride behind you, you're going to be cooperating with that force of the road. You're coming down and it's sweeping behind you versus braking. So that's the principle of cooperating with forces. And then I was just having a conversation with our other coach, Matty Moe, about this. And I was talking about the third principle, because he was asking how fast do you run somebody through this progression? And I said, the third principle is probably the most important one. That's gradual progress, right? And so we borrow that principle from Tai Chi, gradual progress. It's not going to be something that happens overnight. I think when I really first started changing my form, probably was at least a solid 6 months before I felt like, I think I'm starting to get this, right?
Okay. I'm starting to kick in.
Yeah, I'm starting to pull my leg closer to the body's center of gravity now. This is becoming a lot more natural for me. And that was probably 10 years ago or so, right? And even now, there's days I'm out there and I feel fantastic. There are other days I'm like, did I even learn how to run?
So I want to just interject here, because I'm terrible at the run. Personally, I just don't enjoy it. I find it to be difficult. But there are days that I have had really fantastic runs. They're very few and far between. I think of one in particular, 10-mile run. I was with Kenny, and he's like, hey, you want to, we're going to stop something. And I'm like, no, I'm having the best day of my life. I'm going to keep going, right? This is the best time I've ever had, right? I want to get this 10-mile PR basically. Yep. And I think it was, when I think back to how I felt, what was going on with my body at that time, I had a stride that was more aligned, I guess I would say, not knowing any of those principles at the time. So I can totally understand how this fits together, knowing a little bit about martial arts and a little tiny bit about Tai Chi. Not a lot, but same as you, just a little bit of cursory stuff that I've learned and read about. So that's great.
What was real interesting is in Ironman Lake Placid, where our house was, we would have seen you three times. Yeah. And every time I saw you, some of the runners were starting to break down, but you looked like you were having, you were getting tired, but your run looked like a gazelle. Like you were popping off the ground. You looked light on your feet. You looked like, wow, it's deep into the race where everybody's breaking down, but he looks tired, but he looks like he's going to overcome all these people around him because they were breaking down on the run, and you looked like you were kicking in. Even though the bike and the swim have taken some from you, it didn't look like you were dipping into that run reserve. I
appreciate that. Actually, I'll tell you, it felt rough. It was tough, but I think when you've got that proper form, and again, I did spend a lot more time this past season focused on the run and being able to maintain that form when stuff got real. I think that's what I did feel like I had my best run this year at Lake Placid, but that's why I was very much focused on incorporating the different exercises that I know are going to allow me to maintain that form so I can stay light on my feet. So even when, it's painful, you're in the cave at that point, still can keep in my mind, okay, stay tall, keep my core engaged, nice, smooth strokes, almost like I'm still on the bike, right? Just pedaling that wheel as I'm running forward.
Yeah, you look good.
That's great.
I appreciate that.
I think it's very, very important. I think when we as athletes allow the race to break us down to that point and the form starts to really collapse, your mechanics go to hell, you're walking too much, then you're bent over. Some people have that the muscle failure where they just end up like damn near coming through bent over completely, right? So,
and we have to we have to reinforce that stuff on all of the runs that we schedule out.
Right.
So all of my athletes probably get tired of me hearing, tired of me saying, hey, today you're going to focus on this aspect of your form or that aspect of your form. Oh, come on, coach. It's only a 20-minute run off the bike. Like, should I still focus on it? Like, you have to get that muscle memory embedded now so that when you're too tired to actually think about it, it's just second nature.
Yeah. It's great.
Well, I mean, we have an athlete I coach, Steve Hawley. We call him the Big Rig, and he's in his 60s. And, Rig went to your seminar at race camp.
Oh, yeah.
And he loved it. He's like, man, I was doing things wrong. I feel better now. And like looking at his Training Peaks runs, they're better and better and better, and he's going to be going out at Ironman Florida in December. And,
awesome.
He's just got better that day. Because to Sarge's point, maybe he thought he could run the form. You always hear, man, I just got to get in the water to get my form better. I got to get my form better. But you'd hardly ever hear, man, I got to spend more time on my run form. And he did that day and just got better as a,
awesome.
60-year-old athlete. We are very careful with his run because of the amount of matches or arrows he may have left to shoot. And now you're making it better for him and more comfortable, each and every time he runs.
Cool. Appreciate that for sure.
Yeah. Good stuff. So we interrupted you, Ken. Were there more principles that you were?
So no, I mean, those are the core three, right?
Okay.
So alignment and relaxation. In Tai Chi, they use this image of a needle through cotton. So think about that postural alignment. That's a needle. It's not going to bend. It's strong. And the cotton is loose. It's fluid. So we get that posture set really strong like the needle. Then our arms or our lower legs, we want to keep relaxed, right? It's kind of that loose cotton. So principle number one. Principle number two is that cooperating with forces, both the force of gravity and the force of the road coming after you. And then that principle number three, again, just gradual progress. These things take time and we got to build on them.
That's good. So, I think that we have Steve's testimonial. There's many others that have commented about the clinic that you put on during our race camp this year in June. So that's fantastic. We are now negotiating, not with you, but with the time and the calendars of when we can get another, maybe one here in the fall.
As soon as we find time.
And find a venue possibly because it's going to be maybe cold by then, but we'll figure that out. That's what we do for our athletes and we go from there. So it's, I think it's a growing, aspect of endurance sports that people are really, leaning towards and, getting some positive feedback from. So that's awesome. And we saw it live with your athletes, with yourself at Lake Placid this year as well.
Ken, I have a question for you. You had said something earlier about how you sat down with your athletes and you went through, hey, what's your race strategy? What's the reason behind your performance? Do you find, because I shared it a couple podcasts ago about Alyssa Simmons had called me and said, hey, how are you? How are you going to do? What are you thinking for that day? And as a coach, do you sometimes forget to find time to write your own stuff, to write your own goals of what you want? Or because you're always focused on making everybody else better, do you find that sometimes you lack in your own, like, man, hold on a second. What do I want to do? What is my reason? Like, do you level check that a lot in your race season?
So I make a conscious effort to try to stay on top of that stuff, right? One of the other areas that I coach in, again, that theme of coaching runs through probably almost everything I've got in my life, right? So I'm certified through a group called Full Focus, and their ultimate goal is to help individuals find what they call the double win. And so that's winning at work and succeeding in life, right? And a lot of the principles that they use involve writing good goals, making goals realistic, making sure that we have goals that, probably no more than 2 or 3 per quarter at the most, right? And they might obviously turn into larger goals too. So if I have a goal to complete Ironman Lake Placid, I might have a quarterly goal of going through my development phase or my development period, and then a quarterly goal of actually going through the race execution period, right? Same thing. I'll use that framework to set goals for work or for life, right? Like one of my goals this season in Q4 here is related to coaching my son's soccer team and the things we want to do with those kids. So the idea is, don't overcommit. And if you have a solid list that actually means something to you, whether it's related to your athletic endeavors or your day job or your family or any other aspect of your life, then you keep those in front of you, right? So one of my morning rituals is that, I've got this little thing that I run through every morning, sit down, drink my coffee, journal a little bit, but I have my list of goals for this quarter in front of me, and I keep my eye on them, and I just look at them every single day. So by doing that, it takes 60 seconds each day, but I can keep my own personal goals front of mind. And then if I'm starting to struggle with one of those, or I need some help with one of those, I reach out to one of my coaches and get some help there. So that kind of helps me keep myself accountable.
I think it's incredible. Yeah, I think I'm not sure when this cast is going to actually drop, but the coach of Vanderbilt has a similar philosophy. And if you guys are following college football, they just beat Alabama this season. And so
do we need to check on your mom, by the way?
We might, but he says that we don't do anything that's not going to lead to us winning. And they check that every single day. The amount they spend, the things they do, the way they speak to the athletes, what the workouts they have planned for those athletes, the game prep, the offense, the defense strategies, the film reviews, everything. And, they pulled it out. So just an example, because I heard that yesterday during the game, they talked about that with that coach.
So key. We have to, it's the one thing I do with a lot of the athletes that I coach. They're running companies, right? They're responsible for a lot of other people. They've got all of these big goals. And it's like, okay, what do we have to make sure if we're doing? Are we moving in that direction, or are we not moving in that direction? And we've got to try to just relentlessly deprioritize the stuff that doesn't move us toward the ultimate.
Yeah, so you're either moving forward or backwards.
Yes.
But you're never really able to stand still.
That's right.
Because you'll be sliding. Yep. So you have to, even if it's minuscule or minute when it's tough times and it's just slow going, as long as you're still moving forward on your stack of goals, personal, professional, family, whatever that might be.
And you've got to set up those, I talked a little bit about a morning ritual I run myself through, or we talk about like the things that you need to prioritize. You got to make sure you're prioritizing the right things too. Just because, I'm going to go just to the lake and I'm not going to swim today. I'm just going to, it's just a family day, right?
Sure.
Does that mean I'm moving backwards in my goal? No, actually you probably need that little bit of recharging time to keep you moving forward. So sometimes we think that, we don't prioritize ourselves or self-care or, being able to recharge a little bit. But without that recharge, we're probably going to slide back. So we're going to make sure that we're working those types of things into our pursuits.
Or get an injury, have a reset. Like there's a lot of things that can happen, right?
Yep.
Focus too much on triathlon and now your wife wants a divorce and something
on
like
the goal list.
That wasn't on the list, right? I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Maybe it was on the goal list. Who knows?
Whatever. You have to balance the family, right? They're
Absolutely.
with you. They're your support system. They're, relying on you for a lot of things, no matter who you are, moms and dads out there, spouses, both sides. Definitely part of the equation of endurance sports.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And as a coach, it's I say it all the time, it's our privilege to get to have these conversations, and I love that you just said my next chapter of my life is my son's coaching. That's very detailed. You're still managing everything else, but that's a priority right now. And I love that. We have a batch of, 10 or 12 going to Arizona for Ironman full.
Oh yeah.
And the emotions are now starting to crank up, and one of them just rode 100 miles yesterday, ran 6 and swam 2,000 all in one day. And it was, I thought I can, now I think I will, because it's all starting to, and with that, the emotions are starting to race, or rise, and being there to help them understand you're right in that same posture. And now that you're at this point, now we're close. We got to start honing in on our ideas, what we want to have that day. What's your finish line strut going to be? What's this? What's that? Like giving them all of what they need.
Part of the experience too.
Part of the experience.
So now you've built them up and they're doing the workouts. The fitness level has grown. The endurance is coming together. The plan is working on that. Now the emotional side of let's enjoy this as we go through. So we're not just dead on our feet at the finish line. We actually have a little fun.
Yep.
The whole thing. How's the family going to do? We'll even talk to these athletes at some point about who's spectating for you, where are they going to be. If they want to follow us, just we'll put them in the right place for you. And they're like, oh my God, this is fantastic. So we kind of try to take care of the entire ecosystem around that athlete at the race venue so that they get to the finish line in the best possible shape and they make it to that finish line in the best possible shape as well.
Yeah, I think that was one thing that was very apparent that I noticed with you guys prior to coming on board, just the way that it becomes, again, community, but that community is family. It's friends. It's helping them figure out what they can do. I remember my first Ironman. My wife had no idea what to expect, and she didn't really have anybody else there helping her around, right? So she saw me get out of the water and get on my bike, and then she went to Joe's Crab Shack and, had drinks for 6 hours and then came back. But I was so new, too, that I didn't even really know to tell her where to go. And so to have a group of people that provide that support system, I think is invaluable.
Oh, it's been fantastic, and we get a lot of kudos for it, and we love to do it, and we've made all those mistakes too. Kenny's first half Ironman, his buddy Murph and I, we went to breakfast. We missed his bike. Like we forgot to check out of the hotel.
And I wore high top Nikes to the swim.
We're driving all over the place. It was a mess.
High top Nikes to the swim. I'm on the beach and I leave him. I'm like, hey, can you carry these?
So we're walking around. I
didn't even come home with them. I think he left them on the beach.
But I guess what we make easier today after so many years or decades of doing this, we learned from our mistakes along the way. We were not anywhere close to this, but it is entire, like I said, ecosystem. I know that's a buzzword, but it is that wrapped around that athlete. It's the plan, it's the coaching, it's the execution of the workouts, it's the psychological, emotional care that goes into each athlete, calming fears and putting things, in the right places, compartmentalizing the day, getting them ready for the actual start line, then having them execute each of the disciplines throughout the day and feeling great about it. And then, family around them, and then whatever that after party looks like as well. So it's awesome.
Well, Arizona is shaping up for the ages. In that race, you're going to have one or two worlds going to make a world's qualification. You're going to have someone that lost somebody in their life that's racing for that, somebody that is having a life change that's overcoming that, somebody that just overcame a big injury at her, overcoming that, and the doubt of, I don't know if I can. Watching them crank 80 to 100 miles, I think yesterday, and it's going to happen, but the emotions are going to be off the charts there. We're going down. Coach Steve will be there, Coach Bowles, Coach Alice. So we're going to have a lot of coaches on staff to help the coaches race, to help the other athletes. It's wild. It's
awesome. It's good stuff.
But the reasons why they're doing it are legendary.
Yeah, the whys behind it. There's a story for every single one, and it's not just because they enjoy all this work, right?
Right.
All the work is what you have to pay the piper to get to the why. And the why is to show their kids, like ours was back in the day, that you could do anything.
Yeah.
Even if you're old dudes playing cornhole in the neighborhood, you could get in shape and you could go do something that people thought was impossible, to swim that long,
absolutely,
to run that much, to bike that much, all in one day. It can be done. To overcoming medical traumas, overcoming huge weight loss, and getting into a place where they felt like they could accomplish these types of athletic events, overcoming life events and losses of family members and things of that nature. So it's very incredible to be able to share in that with these athletes and to support them through this process?
One of the things I've been finding, Ken, and you probably get it too with some of yours, is because Brian Peters was there, Alice was there, and I keep running back to one thing I keep saying to him. I'm getting, man, I can't wait for this to be over, because they're at the height of their training.
They're in the dark spot. Right?
They're in the heat of their training. Man, I just can't wait for this to be over. I want to go back to that other. But what's interesting, and I keep saying, don't rush that. Don't rush that day. Just take it all in. And Coach Alice and I were talking the other day. She swam 5,000 yards the other day, when one by one of her teammates or friends or Victory athletes kept walking out of the pool trying to say bye to her. And here comes a flip turn. And there she goes. And here comes another flip turn. And the one lady was like, I don't think I'm going to get to say bye to her. I'm like, nah, she's in it. Yeah. And like what she's doing, what used to be so unimaginable, 100-mile ride, 5,000 yard swim, it's second nature to her now. Yep. And she just said, I'm tired. I'm probably going to take a nap today. And I said, you've earned it.
Oh yeah.
But I said, do not rush through any of this, because that day, it's legendary. It's unimaginable what's going to happen that day. And it is funny because Peters, like 3 days later, sent me a picture of like Pablo Escobar from the show sitting in his like lawn chair, like just looking. And then he's sitting on the couch with his legs crossed. Yeah. And then he's pacing around his living room. And it just said, me enjoying my 4th day off. Like I'm ready to go.
Ready to go. That's right.
They need that daily grind.
That's right.
And it gets instilled in them. And that's part of, I think, what changed my life is, I could have been pulled in 95 different directions. But man, that one taste of that hidden food of endurance and what that feels like and what it opens up to you and the mental strength that comes with it, man, I can't pass that up.
Yeah. I'm already thinking next year, what is that going to look like? I can remember finishing Placid thinking, okay, it'll be nice to have weekends back. And, and they certainly are, don't get me wrong, but, like, man, Placid, it's calling again.
Okay.
And should I go back? Cause again, enjoying the little bit of time off now. Right. But just being able to do that and, don't rush it. Like you said, I think is the key. And I can remember on race day thinking, okay, I've got weekends back after this. Probably there's a good number of people during this race today saying, man, I can't wait for this to be over. I just want to get to the finish line. I'm thinking the whole time, like every now and then I have these little mantras depending on the race. And my mantra at Placid was, like we get to do this, right? Like we get to choose our hard. Like there's so many people out there going through so many different things, hard things that they don't get to choose, but like we got to choose this.
That's
like,
right.
I gotta love every second of this, as in much pain as I am in. Like I don't want it to be over. Like, obviously I want a decent time, but like I don't want this to be over. I love it. And it's just that mindset that's, I appreciate it. Like be here, be in the moment, go after it.
I think Zoda said it best the other day. I finished that marathon and all my friends were like, what's next? What are you going to do next? Because they're looking at him different.
Yeah.
And that turned into 2 Ironmen.
They're expecting more out of you as an Ironman.
Yeah.
Because you just accomplished something they could not fathom yet. They may come along. We may find them joining one of the teams here and getting coached, but they are expectant that you're going to try to pick something else out of a very, long list of, crazy things you can do. Right. So, and it does lead to other things. It's awesome.
I really like it, Ken, as a true coach, when you find that athlete and you believed more in them than they believed in themselves, and realistically, Grace Clark is a really good example of that because Grace came in as just a runner and she kept getting hurt.
Yeah.
And and she could be one of the key runners, when we do the get her down there for form work. But she went in that 1 year to find out she was a good biker, liked it, found out she was a pretty dang good swimmer to becoming an Ironman. And that's a person that came as a runner, never imagined it. Jay Bird's another one, ready to quit. Both of them are ready to quit the same day in Victory. And now they're Ironmen at the highest level.
That's right.
I mean, they're both knocking on world's qualifications.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And so they're like so scared of every single little aspect of it, yet they trusted you, they trusted us at Victory enough to just kind of keep going because we said, you might want to just keep going. and they broke through every one of those glass ceilings that they had put on themselves.
Yep.
And they got better at biking. They found they were great swimmers. They were able to put that together. You know, they're phenomenal in the entire package in their age group. And they're, you know, Jaybird qualified for Nice, took a pass because she wants to go to Hawaii. Mm-hmm. So she's going back next year and try to requalify right at Placid and take her Kona spot next year if she can. So, and she'll put in the work. She'll do what she has to do. But that's someone that, to Kenny's point, was, you know, 4 or 5 times told us she was done. Sold her bike, buy another bike. Sold that bike, get another bike.
Sign up for Placid. Don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody though, because I don't want the attention. And then you know, just now she's like, where's all the attention? Well, we told us not to tell anybody. Right?
She's a hammer, man.
Yeah, she's awesome. Good. But those are great stories of athletes that came to us from one direction, have developed into other things, and are continuing to climb the ladder.
Yeah,
awesome.
I think as a coach, when you help people find the path, right? You don't necessarily know what their path is going to be, but you can only listen and help advise,
and
then you see them get to, you know, to that pinnacle, or at least the current pinnacle, or the zenith, and you're like, there's nothing more rewarding than that.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Totally. Like I had a call yesterday, and it was like 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm going to my stepson Ian's homecoming dinner, pictures, whatever. And I get a call, Coach, will you call me? And it was, I need your advice. It wasn't about his run. It wasn't about his swim. It wasn't about his bike. It was about how to approach a coach that's dealing with his kid and how he should approach it. And I love that he's coming to me because I coach, and I used to coach softball, baseball, and I understand the persona of the coach, the parent, having a kid on the team. And I just love those moments when it has nothing to do about a plan or a run or a race. Because like I always tell them, like I'll be there for all that stuff, but I really want to coach in life and help you manage some of the things that I know I made a mistake on.
Yep.
I teed off on a coach one time about Lorelei, and I shouldn't have, but I did, and I learned. And then I coached. I'm wondering, why is that guy teeing off on me? You know what I mean? It's human nature. Yeah. There's a different way to approach it. But like, I love that I'm alongside the athlete. I'm along, you know, and I get that impression of you with your athletes, seeing them at Lake Placid, you know, and where you were, they were. And it was like a common bond. And those common bonds are unbreakable at times. It's so awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, regardless of what avenue we're going down, what are your challenges? How do I help you solve those to help you achieve your goals? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's great. So Coach Ken, you mentioned you're looking at Placid, but really what is your trajectory going into the next couple of years with your coaching business, your personal business, your family business that you're willing to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about trajectory now, story arc, if you will.
Yeah,
right.
I just last spring had sat down and again just trying to also help athletes figure out what trajectories might be. Right, we do a little workshop where we work on life plans. So I've actually had a chance to think a little bit about this and kind of where you want to be in 10 years, 5 years, 3 years. Next year. And this is sort of how I sit down and map things out. Definitely want to continue growing my coaching practice. And that stretches across the bounds of athletes, of high achievers looking to accomplish big things. And, you know, ultimately this probably sounds novel or lofty, but like part of my mission is like have an impact on the world. Like how can I coach people that are going to help change the world? Right. And give my little impact there somehow. So sort of immediately, right, I think that's working with my current set of athletes. I've got a lot of athletes who, again, are also, I'll say, working on big projects outside of athletics. So the coaching involves both taking them to their Ironman finish line, as well as, you know, achieving some of these other big goals and making sure that it all fits within the aspect of their life. So I really want to continue that coaching practice that I have. I'm planning to grow my roster a little bit over the next year or so. Also probably do some group coaching with a few other athletes that I know really want to get in. And then continuing to coach technology partners that I work with.
Right.
So that's kind of what I'm doing on more of the professional side of the house. And then in terms of my own athletics, right now, I'll run the EQT 10 miler. It's not something that I'm necessarily training for. I just think it's a really fun race.
Sure.
I'll probably go down and try to run it pretty hard and use that to baseline my own thresholds as I come into off-season training. I do have, it's not much of an off season, I suppose, because I'm running the Disney half marathon for Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and that's in early January. But
right.
Again, that's less of a performance based race for me and more about, hey, doing it for a good cause,
Sure.
and it's a family vacation, and yeah, we're just having fun. And then from there, like moving into next season, if I decide to do Ironman, I mean, that's the time the training is going to kick up for that. Right now, it's probably more likely I'm looking at like a Louisville or a 70.3 somewhere and a couple of our local sprints or Olympics. But that's the current plan. But I will definitely be back to Ironman, if it's next year or the year after.
Yeah, excellent. That's amazing. And I think that, you're getting my wheels turning as you're talking about the life planning and the life goaling, whether it's for athletes. We have several people that have come through Victory over the years that I'm not saying they're one and done, but I don't know that aftercare or that pre-care of goal setting was well ingrained, because we were so focused on them athletically,
sure,
endurance-wise, just trying to get a plan together, make sure they survived the race, did well, got their goals done there. And, some have, moved on to, not do endurance sports anymore, but I think there's a space for planning that out in a much more intentional way for athletes, way ahead of it. So I'm thinking of another workshop maybe early in the year that might be good for athletes to join. I love with Coach Ken P on a goal thing.
I think that'd be huge. Honestly.
That would be good. Yeah. That'd be good. And it's we understand life gets in the way, but we hear, I'm building a house, or my child's going to be born, and those are all things that do take extra focus and planning and your time for sure. But if this is really feeding your soul in some way, from an accomplishment perspective, from keeping you more focused, we've been reading more and been experiencing more about how intense endurance athletes or intense sporting, sports of any kind actually make you better at all the other things you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? When you're sitting back and you're not as intense with your hobbies, you're not as intense at work, you're not as intense with the family in the right ways. So, and I learned that from, I think we talked about this on Zodis's podcast. My daughter was a competitive gymnast, and they told us when she was like 8 or 9, this is going to make her better at school. And we're like, how could that be? Because she's going to be spending so much time at the gym. It's going to be tough to get homework done. 100% correct. The intensity of the training provided an intensity of getting the work done at school, getting the work done at home, doing the things she needed to do when she needed to do them. So she was an efficient person through her whole life, and she's still doing that now. So it's great. So I think there's some runway here.
I would love it.
There's some definite runway there.
Yeah. When we talk about endurance sports, or we talk about winning at work and succeeding at life, it's the lessons on the surface look different, but underneath they're very, very similar, and they apply across domains.
It's great.
Yeah, I would love that, because that's like because as the coaches, I feel like, or as a coach and owner in Victory, I feel like every one of our coaches cares. And they care greatly about that athlete. Mm-hmm. But now giving them the option, hey, we have something that even further to focus on, to help you, that could turn into this or turn into that. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Just, floats all boats that way, right? Floats all things, when we're bringing that up. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. So, Coach Ken, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and telling us about your history in all these things, endurance-wise, coaching-wise, sports-wise, your whole background. I think it's highly interesting and incredible. I know Coach Kenny thanks you as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
it was a full send.
Yeah, it was. It was. So I think we've even got some new opportunities sprouting from the conversation that we have today. So look forward to that, athletes and listeners. So we'll probably have to have him back for maybe just a life coach session on one episode of the podcast. So thank you again for being on the podcast. Thanks for sharing your story. For those listeners out there, please like and share us. Find us on Spotify, Apple, or iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts, and we will talk to everybody very soon.